Pasture Management.
We're on.
Hi guys! Welcome to this episode of the Pony Podcast.
Another new episode, you lucky ducks.
This is just really weird. I feel like we haven't actually recorded an episode in ages.
We haven't recorded an episode in ages because we've been milking Badminton for all it's worth.
But there have been some really interesting interviews. I feel like I haven't missed out.
And we
that
had
much.
such a good time. It's been nice to relive it.
Yeah.
We're going to start today by doing a little product review for you guys because we were very kindly sent some kit by Noble Outfitters and we thought we'd try it out, give ourselves, a week?
Yeah, a week or two.
Yeah.
It might have been 2 weeks.
Whatever. To work out what we liked about it, what we didn't like, and then if you guys are thinking of buying any of their stuff, then you at least have some basis to go off and choose what you want.
Mm-hmm.
So we were sent pedis, so the socks. I don't know why they call them pedis. That
because it's like ped is feet, no?
yeah, but
So
like
it sounds cool.
also socks. No. Anyway, so we had a pair of socks each. We had a pair of gloves each, a pair of leggings / riding bottoms each,
Mm-hmm.
and then was that it?
That was it.
And that was it. Yeah. I can't remember anything because I'm very tired from watching Love Island.
Oh, that sounds like a good reason to be tired. I'm tired because I drove a long way yesterday.
Realistically, it's a terrible reason to be tired because it's the worst show in the world, and yet also so good.
But at least it's like a fun reason to be tired.
Yeah, there is that.
Dedication to a TV program. So anyway, the pedis. I like the pedis.
I really like them.
Mm-hmm.
I do like for a sports sock. I tend to prefer something with a bit more compression. So like the Chimera socks that we have, they have a bit more compression, so I feel more like supported in them. So for me, I kind of like I prefer the Chimera socks for competing in, but these are so good for everyday.
They're
riding.
really I really like the fact that they're the stretchy, tight material on their legs, so that actually they kind of stay where you put them.
Yeah.
And they're really stretchy.
Yeah, and if you do have boots that are a bit tight, there's not a lot of extra padding, so you're more likely to be able to get your zips done up. We used to have that every time we went to a bucks competition in the winter. All of us would put on a little bit of winter weight, and we'd have like us and Bristol, so Oxford Brookes team and Bristol team, we'd have like a group. Let's get everyone's boots on, like session. You'd have God. One person on one side holding it in, one person on the other side, one person getting the zip up.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Anyway, the other thing they sent us was some riding gloves.
Yeah. I really like mine.
Me too.
They're
I
the
really
competition
like mine.
ones.
They're ready to ride ones. I think that's what they're called. The ready to ride gloves.
Yeah.
And they are what I really like about them as well is they have like little holes in the finger for ventilation, and they're not the same all the way over. So in between your fingers they've got like fabric.
Yeah.
And then the rest is the same material as I had a pair of the Rockall gloves.
Like leatherette stuff. Yeah.
And what I also liked was it's been really, really rainy here.
Yeah.
And my other gloves I had soaked up the water. These didn't.
Really?
So they were wet.
I haven't worn them in the rain.
But they didn't need wringing out.
Yeah.
Which some gloves do, and it's really gross.
I like as well, because they have got wet, but I have those, and I have another pair of leather gloves, and my other pair of leather gloves, when they dry, they're like crunchy and like you have to like get your hand because they're leather, so when they dry after being wet they go really hard and you have to like work them in again, whereas those were just nice to put on when they were dry. So I realised, what did you think about your riding tights? Because you got the riding tights and I got the riding pants, which are fleece lined and waterproof, which originally I was a little bit like, why have I done this? It's the summer, but actually
You predicted the weather.
Absolutely cracking choice.
So I really liked my riding tights. I really like the freedom they give you. Like sometimes with breeches, I find that like the seam might be in the wrong place, or they could be a bit restrictive. But these are great, and they've got a really handy pocket on the leg. Yeah. Because I always find.
Would it fit my phone in it?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, there's loads of room.
Just for those who can't see my phone, I have an 8 Plus, I think. One of the ridiculously big iPhones.
I reckon it would. Like there's loads of room for my phone, and because the pocket's made of the legging fabric, it's really stretchy. But the only thing that I would say is that I think because they were leggings, I've got the same size I would normally as breeches, and I wonder if I should have gone a size bigger. Yeah. Because the waistband is quite tight elastic, so they don't slip when you ride, and it's sort of got to the point where it like is folded in half during the day because my belt's too long.
Yeah.
Because it like sits a bit higher up and goes in a bit around your waist, a bit thinner. My belt doesn't have enough holes to wear with it.
Oh no.
To keep like the thing. But anyway, that would be my only thing. And also that I've washed them twice.
Yeah.
Because they get hay stuck to them.
Yeah.
And it hasn't really got the hay out.
Yeah, that's
it's kind of got bits of hay stuck in it, so they look a bit old. But
so they're good for riding in, but probably not yard working.
Yeah, probably not for being on the yard too much.
I mean, so I got the riding pants, so the fleece-lined waterproof ones, and having been really sceptical, like because they're that like leggingy material, and I thought I really like my breeches, and I like the like cottony fabric. I actually really like them. Because, I mean, so I got soaked in them. And yeah, they're not completely waterproof. So, like, some of the water does get through. But because of the fleece, you never feel cold. And actually, as soon as you are doing stuff and it stops raining, you evaporate all the water straight off. So you're dry again immediately. So you never feel, like, wet, damp and cold.
Oh,
it's been
you
an absolute...
definitely picked better, I think.
The only thing I don't really like about them... And, like, I really like the waistband. They sit really nicely on me. They don't like slip down and like put pressure on my hips, which my Marc Todd ones do. The only thing that isn't great is the pocket. So the pocket, when it has my phone in, it like pushes my phone so it's vertical and then sits it at my hip joint. So every time I flex my hip, I've either got it digging into my hip or my thigh.
That's why I really like the pocket on the leggings.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was really clever that then you don't have that problem.
Yeah, but like, so I have a pair of tan breeches on at the moment, and these pockets are big enough that I can put my phone horizontal so it sits like across the front of my hip. And I like that's been my favourite so far. My favourite like organisation of phone pocket.
Which is really important when you're riding.
Yeah,
really
and
important.
Also they're big enough that I can fit like keys, my asthma inhaler, my phone, my lorry keys, and you know how big the bunch of lorry keys are.
What size are these pockets?
Amazing. I mean, like obviously this is terrible radio for everyone at home, but like I mean. That's her full hand spread out.
For the listeners, Tess just put her hands in her pockets and it's gone right up to her wrists and her fingers are all spread out.
Yeah, and they go like, the pocket reaches from like fly all the way to the outside seam. Like
those are incredible
If
pockets.
anyone from Townend is listening, I would like some free breeches because I have had these for like 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I had another pair that I used a bit heavier and I've only just had to throw them away, and like I had them like they'd split at the knee and I was still using them, and they had holes all down the leg and I was still using them, and these are still going 4 years later. And I like that they have the belt loops are thicker.
I feel like our product review for Noble Outfitters has just
gone badly.
quite badly.
Taking a left turn, but it's important that people know.
Yeah, testing the things that matter.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on to today's topic, which is going to be paddock management.
Yeah, this is one of the topics I'm always like, because we roll our fields and we harrow and we do this. So I'm going to be really good at this, and I never am. I'm always really bad.
This episode is more advanced.
You won't be asked if you're doing your B test. You won't be asked at least this level of detail.
This is like AH level. But if you guys want something that's a bit more like sea level. So kind of about fencing and water troughs and
what you need to look out
shelters.
For in a good field and a bad field.
We can do that for you. So you've got a bit of each. So we'll start off, I think, with how do you pick a field?
Very important
or
if you're choosing where to put your pony. So the first thing you need to consider is the size of the field and the number of horses you want to put in it, because you're going to need about 1 acre per horse. So if it's only one horse, you need 1 acre per horse, but if it's only one horse, you need about 2 acres so that you can rest one side and graze them on the other, and then swap them so that you always have grass growing.
But it also depends on the routine of the horses. So lots of horses now would be in for half the day, out half the day.
Yeah.
Like in during the day, out at night, out in the day, at night. And so then you don't need as much grazing because they're not on it the whole time.
Yeah.
And it also depends on how big the horses are.
Yeah.
Because if you've got a Shire, they're going to eat more grass than a Shetland.
Yeah. And like presumably it depends a little bit on their management. Like if you have like a lamanitic Welsh Section A, you want them to be on no grass. Like you want it to be a small paddock with like the shortest grass you can possibly get.
With lots of trees so the grass doesn't grow.
And lots of, just nothing in it.
Yeah. Where I used to work, they had all the ponies that were slightly laminitis prone. They had this big area called the park.
Yeah.
And it had loads of trees around the edge.
Yeah.
So hardly any new grass grew in it every year, to the point that when we mucked out in the evenings, we had to collect up all the hay that was left and spread the hay on the field so that the seeds would re-sprout the field. And that's how difficult it was to get the grass to grow. So they put all the ponies in there in the summer because it was like, well, you've got no grass, but you've got loads of room to move around.
when I did my AH test at the mill, we went down to the paddock. And me and the girl I was... So you go in pairs to do your AH and you do different sections together. And me and the girl I was paired up with were taken to this paddock and they were like, okay, so tell me about the grass. And we had no idea what was going on. Like, again, Sarah Mac, I can only apologise if you're listening to this. I did pass, so, But, like, we went out, we had basically no idea what we were talking about. We were basically going off that it was green. And so we were like, yeah, it's really good. I like that there's a river running by, so it'll be nice and cool, but there'll be midges in the evening. And they were like, yeah, but what about the actual pasture? And we were like, yeah, no, it looks fine. Like, it looks fine. And in our debrief, I went to do my debrief, and I sat down, and Sarah was like, you realise that's our laminitic paddock? So it's no grass, it's just weeds. So they barely eat any of it. She was like, you realise that's where we put our laminitic ponies because there's no grass in there? And I was like, oh yeah, I do remember not seeing any grass. I do remember that.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
So... And the next thing you need to think about for a field, moving on, your soil type.
Your geology of the area.
Yeah, so the resident geologist will deal with this one. So the different ones you can get, you can have like clay soil, chalk, sand, or peat. So clay isn't ideal because it gets quite wet and holds a lot of water. So we're on clay here.
Yeah.
And
when you can tell you're on clay because when you bring them into the field, if it's been wet, they have great big like clods of mud stuck to them, and you have to hose it off, and it like comes off in great big lumps, like very clayey stuck together.
But we're on clay here, and it means we can't turn out in the winter because the fields don't drain.
No,
they don't drain, and if the horses go out in them, they just trash it, and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And it can also be because of this, it can be quite hard to maintain because you can't get on to roll it or anything until it's really, really dry.
Yeah.
And you've also got to be careful that then in the summer, when it does dry, it can get really dry and crack.
Yeah.
So we have some problems here sometimes with fence posts getting loose because it just gets really hot and then the ground expands. Yeah. And then the fence posts are wobbly. And it's also, this is important for the grass, it's alkaline, is clay.
Yeah. I think that's why you get so many buttercups here as well, because they like alkaline soils.
That's true. You can also get chalk soil, which is good as it contains natural lime and it also holds water well, so it would tend not to get too hard in the summer.
We're on chalk at home, I think. Ooh. I think, as my mum texts me like, no, we're not. Sorry, Mum, for that terrible imitation of you.
We're on chalk too when I'm home, but our fields are all on a hill, so they drain beautifully in the winter. Yeah. You can also have sandy soil, and this is good because it drains well, but if you have lots of rain, all the nutrients can get washed out of it, which isn't good for your grass.
That's what Nunny's on sand.
Is that why it was so fast?
So I went and competed at Nunny International Horse Trials, which was an incredibly run event, I will say. Like, they did a really, really good job. And the amount of rain we had, I was like, I'm not going to need studs. It's going to be absolutely sodden. I'm going to be jumping out of feet of mud. It was almost hard. Like, I was almost like, this is a bit firm. Maybe I won't run very quickly. It was really, really firm. And that's because that's on sand, so it all drains.
The third point for sand was going to be that it dries quickly, so there you go.
It was brilliant.
Peat is another type of soil you can have, which holds water really easily, and you don't want to put horses on it.
That's more Norfolk-y area, isn't it?
No, Norfolk's sandy.
Where's peaty then?
Like
Ireland?
Dartmoor, Exmoor.
Oh, yeah. So
Dartmoor, right. Exmoor, I think. Or like the New Forest in bits. Only from places I've been doing DV and fallen in the bog. That's where I'm going on this.
Ireland's quite peaty.
Yes, Ireland is quite peaty. And peaty soil is acidic.
Yeah.
So you've got your clay soil is alkaline, peat's acidic.
The clay and... So chalk will be alkaline as well, because it's on the limestone.
Yes.
Which is, obviously... If anyone's done chemistry... GCSE, A-level, whatever, you'll know
if you haven't, we have some chemistry for you later on.
Yay!
So we could also need to take into account the grass types.
Yeah.
Which, do we do that now, or should we do the see below thing?
Let's do grass types now. Okay. So you tend to be asked what are like good grasses to have your horses eating and bad grasses to have your horses eating. And the way I always remember the good ones is quite a lot. You'll be asked to name like 2 or 3. And quite a lot of them are named after animals, the good ones. So there's cocksfoot, crested dog's tail, and Timothy, which is just a name, but it sticks in my head.
Or cat's tail's another name for it.
Cat's tail. Oh, Timothy. Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
There you go, it's another animal for you.
And then ryegrass is another good one. And then the other one that everyone always remembers is meadow fescue, because it sounds like meadow rescue.
And meadow fescue is also the one that you do here's the tree in summer, here's the tree in winter, here's a bunch of flowers, here's Nate Bush out with that one.
I'm so glad that wasn't just me that did that. If anyone's not done that, it's a great it's a great reason to throw grass seeds all over your friends. Yeah. Basically.
And then your poor grasses.
Yeah.
I don't know a way to remember them. They just have to learn them. So you've got Yorkshire fog, sweet vernel, wool barley, and common bent.
Yeah.
And typically, your good grasses are found in lowland areas and poor grasses are found in highland areas. And it's not that poor grasses are poisonous, it's just they have less nutritional value.
Yeah.
And they tend to be like long and spindly, and the good grasses tend to be a bit more bushy. And you also need to watch out for poisonous plants, which we will do in a future episode.
We will do in a future episode.
And a general cycle for the grass is that grass tends to grow when the temperature rises. Yeah. Dependent obviously on the rain and whether the soil gets warm. And in the UK, it tends to start growing between March and April, with peak growth in May and June. You tend to get an autumn flush in September, when it gets a little bit warmer at the end of the year, and then it stops growing in October.
That's when you can get second cuts of hay. So the grass grows in like March through to May. You have it cut in May, dries for June, you collect it, and then you let it grow for the second flush, and then recut it in August, September time.
I think so.
But the second cut is not as nutritious as the first cut, or not as soft as the first cut, because it's had like the top cut off it, so it goes through a bit what I'm trying to say, coarser. That's the word I'm looking for. Right, okay, so
back onto things to how to pick a field.
Okay,
so drainage drainage is important because it allows air and water to mix in with the soil. So the air allows the little microbes in the soil to break down and organic matter and release nutrients, and the water is needed for the grass to grow. And also good drainage allows the soil to warm faster so the grass can go earlier.
Yeah. The more microbes you have, so soil microbes are really important in things like nitrogenizing the field. So nitrogen is really important in like protein synthesis, and it's part of what helps. It's really important in like growth of grass and growth of plants. But the only way you can get nitrogen, it's really hard to fix nitrogen into the soil. So the only way you can do it is with bacteria, with bacteria associated in root nodules and things like clover and other legumes. And the other one that everyone remembers is that you can fix it with lightning. Lightning fixes hydrogen really well, but it's hard to get hold of typically. So the more microbes and soil like bacteria you have, the better pasture you'll have, and they're and fungi as well. The better pasture you'll have if you have more fungi and mycorrhiza in the soil, which is why ploughing is actually really bad for soil health. Because when you dig up the soil and like turn it over, you expose them all to the sun, they all die, and then you have to plant stuff in like soil that has nothing fixing nitrogen there. So that's why you have to fertilise it. And if you didn't plough, you wouldn't have to so much. Yeah.
Cool. So if you have ground that doesn't drain very well, there are some things you can do. You can dig drainage ditches.
Yeah. You have to make sure they're cleared out once a year though.
Yeah.
Otherwise they just fill up and they're gross.
You can also put mole drains in.
What are mole drains?
So mole drains, oh my god, I got the book out and I think I remember. So it's like basically you have a plough behind a tractor.
Yeah.
That something goes in the ground and you run it along under the ground, and it creates a channel under the soil.
Okay.
So
like a mole tunnel.
Yeah, like a mole tunnel. That's why they're called mole drains.
I'm seeing the logic.
I didn't see the connection. I've never seen the connection. Thank you for enlightening me.
Okay.
But they're only really suitable for really heavy clay soil.
Yeah.
Because they collapse after about 5 to 15 years. You can also put new subsoils in.
Yeah.
So you can add some more sand. And that helps to break up compacted ground.
Presumably that's quite like invasive though, because you're going to have to like mix it all together.
Yeah, so we're going down the scale of more invasive.
Yeah, okay.
So like drainage is the least invasive, then mole drains, then subsoils, and then a mains drain is a big project. Like if you need to use land that needs you to put mains drains in, like you're really scraping the barrel.
Maybe
for
give it a
grassland.
miss.
You know?
Feed hay.
Yeah. Yeah, or just like keep your horses in or something.
Yeah.
Like, it is a big project because you have to like dig up all the soil and make drains and like it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So another thing you think about for your field is how often you're going to rest it. Because if you're going to have a chance to rest it a lot, then you might need, or if you want to rest it a lot, you're going to need a bit more land so you can rotate more.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to rest it that much, you kind of need to keep on top of its management and its maintenance. And
you need to make sure you give the grass time to grow, otherwise you're going to have nothing left at the end.
Yeah. You also need to think about your type of fertiliser you want to use in the field. So here's the sciencey bit.
This is where I was saying, if you plough field, you then have to add fertiliser. And they're starting, so a friend of mine did her dissertation on something called compost teas, which you can use instead of fertilisers, because fertilisers obviously are not great for the environment.
Yeah.
Really. So what you do is you make like a pot in like a massive tea bag. You make like a pot of like compost and fungi and all that good stuff, and you let it kind of brew for a bit, so all the fungi like multiply and all the bacteria multiply, and so you end up with this kind of composty tea.
That's so cool.
And you sink it in the corner of a field, and they all spread out across the field, and then that's your fertiliser.
That's so cool.
And then you just make sure that you don't plough it, because that would kill them all.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're trialling it in. Is she from Jersey or Guernsey? Jersey, I think. Yeah, she's from Jersey, where in Jersey they've been told that they have about 7 more years of soil fertility left to be growing stuff, which is scary.
That's very scary.
I mean, there's less. So the UK as a whole has less than 100 years of soil fertility left. Jersey has, Guernsey even, both of them have about 7. So obviously they're really panicking about like soil fertility and how they can give the soil some more longevity and how they can get nutrients back into it, and this is one of the things they're trialling.
That's so cool. Unfortunately that was not on our list, but now you know about it. So grass grows best at a pH of 6.5.
Okay.
So for people that aren't that sciencey, a pH of 1 is really acidic and a pH of 14 is really alkali.
And a pH of 7 is just right.
Yeah, so they like slightly acidic soil. And you want to really get it tested every year so you can give it the best fertiliser, because depending on the weather and what you've got grazing on it, pH might change. You can get a kit from a garden centre and just do a little sample yourself. Yeah. Or the Agricultural Development Advisory Service, or ADAS, can come maybe for a small fee, or for a first time come free. Yeah. And they'll look at your soil, do some tests, and make a yearly plan for you.
Oh, that's so good.
Soil, yeah.
And they presumably know what they're doing.
They're related to the government, so it's in their best interest as well to help you make the most of your land. Because like you were saying about soil fertility, we haven't got that much land. So if you can make the best use of it, that's best. And you want to fertilise in the spring ideally, when the field isn't being grazed, and then you leave it for 2 weeks if it rains, because you don't want to put any animals back on the field
with fertiliser on it,
because it can be poisonous. And ideally you want a slow release fertiliser so you don't suddenly get a flush of grass. You don't want a fertiliser that's too high nitrate, because it can give the grass too much sugar. But
I think that's what. So they don't know what causes Monday morning sickness and tying up, but I think that's one of the suspected causes, is grass that's too high in sugar.
I did have something else down about fertiliser. So if you want to reseed your field, you ideally don't want to just go to a garden centre. You want to try and find someone that's got a seed mix that's specifically for horses. Because if you use like cow grass or sheep grass, sometimes it can be too high in sugar.
Really?
Yeah. And so we have where I used to keep my horses, we always got our fields fertilised.
Yeah.
And we had to be really careful with the smaller ponies.
Yeah.
Because obviously you've got like really rich grass, and if they're prone to laminitis,
it's going to be really bad.
You can't put them on it.
Yeah.
So you do need to watch stuff like that. That it can be great for someone to come and look at your field and advise you on the fertiliser and what seeds, but you also need to think about what you're going to put on it.
Yeah.
And if you're a breeder, they prefer to use organic fertiliser.
Yeah.
Generally, because obviously you've got foals and the mares are eating it and then feeding the foals.
Yeah. Smart. So so the things you need to think about your fertiliser containing, this is our chemistry bit.
There's 4 elements.
4 elements. They're quite, I mean, if you've done any form of chemistry, they'll be really easy to remember. But if you are listening to this and you're like, oh my God, chemistry, no, I can't do this. This is going to be so hard. Just
bear with.
It's not going to be hard. It's going to be nice and easy. Like a dream introduction. It's going to be lovely.
Maybe we could make a song or something.
We've talked about the rapping thing before. This voice. I was singing to myself, mucking out for Maddie, and she came in and she was like, I like the singing, and I feel like she did not. So I'm not going to be putting my singing anywhere public. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, sorry.
Love the enthusiasm, but no.
Okay. Scrap that idea. Do you want to do number 1?
Yeah. Okay. So number 1 is, we've already talked a little bit about it. It is nitrogen. So because it's really hard to fix nitrogen from the atmosphere in the soil, you sometimes need to apply it as a fertiliser. You apply it in the growing season. It's then washed into the soil by the rain. If you have really clovery fields that have a lot of clover in them, clover's really, really good at nitrogen fixing because it has little root nodules that has bacteria that do it for you. But if you have loads of clover, it can make the grass too rich for horses because it's really high in nitrogen, and that inhibits release of potassium, which we'll talk a bit about later. Sheep really like clover.
I'm waiting till we get onto the cross grazing, but I have a really good story about sheep and cross grazing. Okay. My mum will not be happy. So number 2 is phosphorus, and it encourages clover to grow, which you need to be careful of because, again, too much nitrogen. And you also need to be careful of the calcium-phosphorus ratio, which people know from B-test.
Yay! And we covered it in feeding, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 to 1. So go back and listen to our feeding one if you don't know.
I'll make sure that it is back up. Is that one of the ones I took down to make space? I don't know. We'll find out. The next one is potassium. Mm-hmm. So potassium is inhibited by nitrogen, so you have to be careful that you don't have too much clover, etc. It's found in clay and released slowly. It encourages good grass growth, and you can apply potassium as potash when the hay crop is taken off the field. Fun thing, so they discovered the reason potassium comes from potash is they discovered it like way back when they would put like iron ore and stuff in a pot in the ground and heat it up really, really high, and then some of the stuff, so they took the like iron out, but then the stuff that was left was potassium, but obviously it was like the ash at the bottom of the pot, so it was potash.
That's cool.
Yeah. My little thing.
Okay, and number 4, the last one, is calcium.
Yeah.
And that's applied as lime to the field, so calcium carbonate, CaCO3.
Also known as it's like a form of limestone. So you can get limestone as chalk, limestone, or lime.
Yeah.
And it's all the same formula. It's just all in different forms, which is stupidly complicated.
You also get, Okay. And lime reduces the acidity of the soil, which encourages nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus to be released from soil.
Yeah.
So basically, if you've got a soil that's alkali, you want to add calcium.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you've
got
it reduces acidity. So
yeah, so you said alkali. If you've got a soil that's acid, you want to add lime.
Yes, to make acidic soil to lime
to neutralise it. And if you've got an alkali one,
anything else.
Okay.
Yeah, clover.
Sure.
And nitrogen, and So the last thing you want to think about for your field is how well maintained the field is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't speak.
Yeah.
Because horses are really fussy and annoying, and if they don't like the taste of the grass, they would choose not to eat it.
Yeah.
And they would rather starve themselves to death than eat grass that doesn't taste very nice.
Good animals to keep, I think.
Yeah.
Great.
So if you don't poop at your fields regularly or harrow them, they can get rills and tufts. It's my favourite thing. Favourite name. So if you look at a field that has little tufty bits, those are the tufts. And the really, really well grazed bits are the rills.
Do you not call them lawns and roughs?
That's what Kathy said, so I'm running with it.
Ah, well, yeah, I think we call them lawns and roughs, but never mind.
Yeah.
So horses, because they're really fussy, they don't really like long grass. So their like perfect grass is about 4 to 6 inches long, and not really any longer. So they don't like the really, really long stuff that you would cut hay from. But if you do have a field that has really, really long grass, you're not going to cut hay or anything from it. Then what you can do is cross graze. So graze with other animals like cows or sheep. So cows like really long grass. They don't really like the short stuff because they don't have very good incisor teeth. Sheep will eat anything. So just shove sheep on whatever.
You can also top it.
Yeah.
Which is easier.
Yeah. But if you top it, you have to... if you top the field, you have to leave the toppings to dry without the horses on them, because otherwise they eat them and get colic.
So when we used to keep ponies, they had loads of clover.
Yeah.
So my mum and the women that owned it, they got some sheep in.
Yeah.
And these sheep were such a nightmare. I think, generally sheep, their only purpose in life is to find unusual and exciting ways to die. So they were looking at these sheep, and there was one sheep that was by the hedge. And my mum, she said looked at it and was like, I don't think that's moved in half an hour. Oh no, I hope it's okay. So they went out to look at this sheep, and it had got itself stuck in the hedge with brambles on its wool, and it was stuck just with brambles. And the weather was horrible, just to put this in perspective. So my mum and her friend spent a good hour cutting this sheep out of the brambles. And it was a bit like, oh, this isn't very nice. And we're struggling, and they were like, we're trying to help you.
They are stupid animals. Like, I love animals. Like, I did a degree in animal biology. Like, I love animals. But sheep are idiots. Like, so there was a night in Wales. I'm like 90% sure this is a true story. It sounds very not true, but I'm pretty sure a lecturer mentioned it to me at some point. So there was a night in Wales where all of the sheep in like the north of the country or somewhere aborted their lambs. Like, all of them spontaneously aborted their lambs. And people were like, oh my God, it's aliens. It's like shifts in the magnetic field. What they pinned it down to was one sheep in one field had thought it saw something and went, huh! And then the sheep next to it went, huh!
Oh God.
And then the sheep in the next field went, huh! And that spread across the entire county of all these sheep spontaneously aborting their lambs. And that is why they are stupid animals.
Although, have you seen not on a pony care or animal company, have you seen the videos on YouTube where they play like the ping pong
they
with the sheep?
Pong with the sheep, and they make like a Shaun the Sheep on the side of the hill. If anyone has a spare 5 minutes, I don't even know what you'd search to find it, but these farmers in probably Wales put fairy lights in their sheep, and then they heard them on the side of a field and like play games and like play football with them. It's excellent. 10 out of 10 for entertainment value.
Anyway, back to pony care. With also the maintenance, the fields can get poached in the winter. And also with the frost doesn't help. So you ideally want to have a way of moving gateways so they're not always standing by the one gate you're going to use, or put hardcore down in the winter, or rest it.
So you can, in order to make your fields like a bit flatter and a bit nicer and stop them poaching, just before the ground gets too hard and before it gets too wet in the spring, you can roll them with a big roller on a tractor. But another way I've another thing I've heard, which is really good, and I have seen it work, when you put sheep on the field, because their feet are so little, they like pat it all down, and it looks like you've rolled it, like it goes perfectly smooth, but obviously you just put sheep on.
So basically, guys, what we're saying is you need to get sheep.
Get yourself some sheep.
But be prepared for them to
be
really, really stupid. So to round it off, we'll put here the little yearly routine for what you want to do to your field. So in March and April is the ideal time to harrow and roll any fields that you're resting and fertilise them, so that they're all ready to go
for the summer.
And then in May and June, you kind of want to spot spray for weeds.
Yeah.
And pull up any ragwort.
Make sure after you spot sprayed, you rest the fields for the designated amount of time, because you don't want to put your horse on a field that you've just weed killed.
Yeah. And don't just be like, oh, it's the end of June, I'm going to stop pulling up ragwort. It kind of keeps going all summer, so you want to keep your eyes on it. And then when you get to July, August, that's vital time to make hay if you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Or to top the fields.
Yeah. And then leave the toppings to dry before you put the horses back on, because it's just like grass cuttings, like they can't eat them.
And then at the end of this year, sort of September, October time, before the ground gets too wet, you want to sort of re-harrow roll and fertilise so the fields are ready to go.
Yeah. And so they can get a bit of growth done before the grass stops growing in the winter.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's everything.
Wow.
If you guys want to leave us a review as per normal, that would be really good. Like us on Instagram.
Like us on Facebook.
Like us on Facebook. There will be more, like for those of you who missed the beta competition, there will be more competitions out soon, so pay attention to the Instagram page.
There's definitely one coming up that's summer related.
Yeah.
Where you can win fly spray stuff.
Yeah, which is very exciting.
And if you enjoyed this episode and you want to find more pony care episodes, we've got some that are on our feed.
Yeah.
On Apple Podcasts, so we've got one on there that's on ailments.
Yeah.
We've got one on there that's on fitness.
Yeah. Loads of them.
Of stuff.
And if there's anything you want us to, any topics you're struggling with that you want us to make an episode on, drop us a message and we'll do our best to cover it for you. All right. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye.